Welcome to English Conversation Class. This week's topic is family. And I have a very special guest here with me today to talk about family. And it is my mother, my mom, Carolyn.
Oh, I'm so glad you invited me. I'm glad to be here, babe. This is fun.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here talking to you. And I just thought of this. My mom has a Southern accent. And some of the people watching the video may not have ever heard a Southern accent. Can you tell them a little about your accent?
I'm from South Georgia, was born and raised in South Georgia. And most of the people in this area speak a little slower than other people do. We might have phrases that we use particular to this part of the country. So in that way, it's just a little bit different.
Yeah. And I'm happy that the people watching the video get to hear a Southern accent, especially when we're talking about family. So let's start by talking about your family of origin. Can you tell us about the family that you grew up in?
Okay. My mom and dad are also both from this area of Georgia, and they met when my dad returned from the military after World War II. When he came home, he met my mom and they married. Interestingly, he is about 17 years older than my mom. And and he was the real leader kind of in the family. And
he wore the pants. That's one of our vocabulary idioms. He wore the pants.
He wore the pants in the family, he did. Yeah. But there was a real closeness, between them, I felt.
And then what about siblings?
I'm the oldest. And when I was born, I had a twin sister. And she lived in fact, I was told that we were identical and that she lived about 24 hours. And so I was the oldest. And then my sister is 2.5 years younger. And then I have a brother who's 9 years younger than I am. So,
And then I happen to know that you were raised in the town where your grandparents lived also. Can you tell us about your grandparents?
Yes. Actually, one of my grandfather passed away, but one of them, but I knew 3 of my grandparents real well. My grandmother one grandmother had 32 grandchildren. And so I loved her and I knew her. She would come and stay with us occasionally because she was widowed, but I didn't feel connected to her like I did my other grandparents.
You were one of the 32.
Exactly. And they had 9 grandchildren. And I was the oldest grandchild. And I remember when my grandmother I would go with her shopping or whatever, and she would meet a friend, she would always say, "This is my oldest grandchild." And I laughed later because I would always want to tell that when Caroline is with me, you want to brag about your oldest grandchild. And now I know what that meant because I made her a grandmother when I was born.
Yeah.
So, and I was real close to them.
So, of all the roles that you have, is there a role or two that's the most rewarding for you?
Well, of course, being a mother, absolutely becoming a mother for the first time with my 2 girls was just so incredibly rewarding and challenging being away from family. But in these later years of my life, being a grandmother I know why they call it grand. I mean, it's hard to talk about my grandchildren without getting a little so proud and teary, and it's really neat being a grandmother. There's so many challenges about the later years in your life sometimes.
Tell me about the family that you had.
Well, when my husband and I met, we were in high school, but we were not even didn't know each other very well, but we ended up going to the same college. And so we started dating when we went away to college. and enjoyed talking and just became very close, started dating. And 2 years after we became good friends, we were engaged and got married. Um, and he joined the military. And so off we went and lived in various parts of the world, the country, traveled a good bit, which I really enjoyed and was excited about, but was also challenged by, being that far away.
And I know I have a sister, so you have 2 daughters.
I have 2 girls, and they're like 2.5 years apart.
And so I know you lived, in other parts of the world and in other parts of the United States and all over the world with 2 young girls. And so I can imagine that was challenging. And I'm wondering, what did you do to help stay connected with your family that you're very close to, while you didn't live close by? Because I know a lot of people watching the video live away from their family, live away from people who are very important to them.
Well, I know it was challenging because when I had both of my girls were born. Candee was born in California, and Carrie was born in Germany, and I was away from my family, and they never saw me pregnant. I would send pictures and make phone calls and things, but that was challenging. But I think that I just knew how important my family was, and I missed them terribly. But we connected mainly by letters. We didn't have cell phones then. When I
No
could make
emails.
phone, no email, none of that. Now I'm like, oh wow, I've been, talking to them all the time. But anyway, lots of letters went back and forth, and photographs in the letters. And then when they could hold a crayon, they would make marks on their paper, and I would tell them, who's this and what's this, and then I would label it. This is Papa, this is whatever. And I would put those in the mail to them. And a lot of mail went back and forth, and cards, went back and forth with little stories, trying to tell little stories about what was going on so they'd feel like they were a part of it, And then the grandparents wrote a lot of letters too. And I would read those letters and try to make it real to the girls also,
So you talked about us being a military family. Dad was in the Air Force and us living all over. And I know you couldn't be with your family as much as you wanted. And because of that, you have always made really good friends in different places that we lived. And one of the thoughts or the ideas that we're talking about dealing with family are friendships in family. And some people believe that friends are the family members that we choose. And then there's also a notion that is blood is thicker than water, and that really your family is sort of more important than your friends. So I wanted to get your opinion, since family and friends are both important to you, with your opinion on the topic.
I believe both are true, and I think they're equally true. That's one of those things where I think both things can be true. At least they are for me, There's a thing that I share with my brother and sister that I don't share with anybody else. Nobody else knows certain things that the 3 of us know or understand or appreciate or share, and that's just the way it is.
Because of your history of your family.
Because of our history, our connection, our DNA, whatever. And not just the DNA, but the experiences we've shared, those experiences. And so nobody can ever take that away or diminish that. But I also have wonderful, wonderful friendships. Wonderful friendships from most places we've lived, even when Carrie was born. In the 40 years ago, I have people that I met in Germany, people that from all the different places we've lived. There's at least one person that is one of my, still a dear, dear friend. from Virginia, from, just all over, and those people meant so much to me. I mean, there were so many times when I was a long way away and I needed some help. Just, I needed to talk to another young mom or about something, and those people were just, I can't, were so valuable to me to be able, because we were sharing some of the same things, and it was just, I don't think everybody realizes how connected you can be when you're that far away and you need a support system, and how important those people were in my life and continue to be. That's what's interesting.
Well, I know that we have people that are started out as friends that I know that we call like aunt and uncle.
Yeah.
Because they have been a part of our life for so long.
Yeah.
So even though they might not technically be a member of our family, they feel like a member of our family.
Yeah.
And we refer to them as aunt and uncle.
Yeah, and they are
to
in a
us.
way,
Yeah.
especially since your dad doesn't have siblings. So.
Yeah, since he's an only child.
Yeah.
So speaking of dad, my last question is related to marriage. So I know that you and Dad celebrated your 50th wedding anniversary this summer, just 6 months ago.
You did.
So I'm hoping that you can maybe give some advice to those of us who have not been married for 50 years. Do you have some advice?
Well, one of the things I figured out is that when we had been, been married maybe even 4 or 5 years, I just remembered different times in our marriage that you would get really, really hurt or really, really angry or really have a disagreement, or your differences in your personalities would come out in such a way that I would think, oh, this is it. I guess this is the way it's going to end, no more marriage to him, life is over as I know it. And I would really go to bed and cry myself to sleep or think about it that way, And then like a day or two later, we'd be laughing again. We'd go to the movie. He'd touch my hand. I'd touch his. We'd be taking a walk together. We'd just be goofing again together, And I think, well, oh, okay. And that happens through the years over and over again. And I thought, that's just another bump in the road. That's marriage. That is marriage. Some of the bumps are hills. They're more than a bump. But I think going around it, bringing a bulldozer in and leveling it, or whatever you need to do, with some therapy, or whatever you do. But just knowing that just hang in there. It's just another bad patch. It's going to get, for me, it'll get better. It'll get better.
I laugh because I know times in your marriage, just in the last couple of years, and you've been married, 50 years, that you would say, why did I marry him? Or Dad would do something dumb, or he would say something
weird.
Different. Yeah, they're very different people. He would do something and you'd roll your eyes and you'd be... And I think that example has always meant something to me, to see that you don't have to... Make me emotional. No, you don't. You don't have to always agree with everything someone does, or you don't have to always even like the person every minute, to stay in a committed relationship with someone and to stay married to someone. And I really appreciate that example. I think that's great.
I think you just made a huge life statement, because even with my friendship, sometimes, you just, that's life. People aren't perfect. We're all flawed. We mess up, we do whatever. But to have somebody in your life that forgives you and can laugh with you later about it and say, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Just human beings. It's just human relationships.
Yeah, like my sister, sometimes we don't talk very long. Sometimes we do. Anyway,
yeah.
Going on forever. Other times we're like, well, you know what, I'll call you tomorrow.
Yeah. Your relationship.
Unfortunately, when you live with a person, you can't say, it's like, see you later.
Yeah.
But it's so worth it to hang it, because you know what? That old saying about the grass is always greener on the other side, but it still has to be mowed. So I just assume mow the grass. I know,
Yeah.
I know which way the grass turns. I know, I figured it out.
I got it. Well, good, Mom. Well, thanks so much for talking to us today and sharing your stories and a lot of laughs with us.
Oh, it was so great to be a part of it. Thank you.